Good evening, everybody. Happy Friday evening. Happy Valentine's Day for those of you that are out there celebrating Valentine's Day. Uh, don't expect a huge audience tonight since it is Valentine's Day, but wanted to jump on. It's late for me, maybe early for those in other parts of the world. Um, and wanted to jump on tonight, talk about some of Microsoft's impending and maybe slightly delayed uh, retirements of some of their products and that are very impactful to data engineers and to businesses. Um, so that's what we're going to talk about this evening. As always, if you have any questions at all about data engineering, this is our Ask Me Anything sessions. Let me know in the comments what you got. Let me know. Let me know that you're here. Say hi. Let me know where you're at, and and I will definitely say hi back. So let me jump into again the Microsoft retirements. There's been several. Big one that we talked about that impacts data engineers uh, that we've already talked about is the retirement of the DP 203 in favor of the DP 700. Right, the DP 203 is the Azure Data Engineer Associate certification, and the DP 700 is the Fabric Data Engineer Associate certification. And so, again, that's a big impact for data engineers. The 203 is expiring at the end of March. So if you are practicing and studying to take that exam, be sure that you have it scheduled before the end of March and that you're ready to take it. Probably won't get a whole lot of time to retest if you're planning to take it right at the end of March. So that was not a Chick-fil-A spot, by the way. That was just the drink that I happen to have. So that's a big one, and we've talked about it. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time there. But if you have any questions about it, let me know in the comments. Happy to have more of a discussion about it. Now, the next big thing that is retiring is Azure Data Studio. That was a big drop over the past week. Microsoft dropped that they're going to at the end of February 2026, stop supporting Azure Data Studio, which is something that a lot of data engineers have migrated to from from using SSMS, which is SQL Server Management Studio, over to using Azure Data Studio, especially for those Azure connections and the fact that you can add extensions to your Azure Data Studio. And you could add things to SSMS, but it doesn't have quite the same feel to it as Azure Data Studio. So Data Studio is a big hit, but there's some options there. As we retire Azure Data Studio, you can either go back to SSMS, which is always still an option to use today, which is probably the most similar to Azure Data Studio. But you could also go to using Visual Studio Code. So I use the whole word there. People don't actually go around saying, "Oh, I use Visual Studio Code." It's people refer to it as VS Code. There is a MS SQL Server, MS SQL extension that you could add into VS Code. Does feel similar to ADS, Azure Data Studio, but it is definitely different, and has had and has been pretty buggy over the years. So it's something that's been around for a while. Something that you could go out there and start kind of playing with, especially since, again, Azure Data Studio is only going to continue to be supported by Microsoft for about another 12 months. So that's the alternative there. So with VS Code, you have the MS SQL expansion, and hey, Nathan. Yeah, it does. I like Azure Data Studio. I liked it because you could add extensions, and the feel of it just felt so much more intuitive than SSMS. What's up, man? Nathan, for those of you that don't know, Nathan jumped on with me last week. Was super excited to have him on. Uh, always happy to see you, Nathan, man, and really enjoyed our session last week. So thank you. Um, yeah, it really was. I liked ADS. Losing it is very near and dear to my heart because I've really enjoyed it, especially uh, compared to SSMS, using SSMS over the years. But hopefully they'll kind of iron out some of the bugginess that's in the VS Code extent words on a Friday night, the VS Code extension, and it hopefully that'll work out well. Yeah, I'm in VS Code for everything else, so what are you gonna do? Likewise, right? Um, so that's a big one. Nathan, man, just you and me tonight. All right. So the big third one that has been announced for a while. I don't know that if a lot of businesses realize it, but Microsoft has um, expired the Power BI premium SKU. Um, so you cannot renew at this point, as of like February 1st, you can no longer renew your Power BI premium SKU license in Azure anymore, or however you were getting it. Um, you have to migrate to Fabric. So it is, personally, in my opinion, this is Microsoft's continued push to get people to migrate to Fabric. So it's a big decision for, I think, a lot of businesses. It will impact data engineers because I think it's going to start to push businesses over the next 12 months more into Fabric and start to make those architecture and data engineering changes where we're going to potentially have to start migrating our pipelines from Synapse or ADF or whatever other ETL tools you're using, and potentially move it into that Fabric ecosystem, um, which again is ADF and Synapse, but you have to migrate those pipelines. It's not like it's just a switch and those pipelines move over. The nice thing about Synapse is that you could export your pipelines as like JSON, and then just take those and basically copy and paste that JSON into your pipelines in within Synapse and Fabric. So there's that option, but that's still a big change for businesses. The businesses have been using those Power BI premium platforms and for years, for probably a decade or more for some people, for some groups, and this is going to be a big change. So starting February 1st, you can no longer renew your Power BI premium SKU. Again, you have to move to the Fabric SKUs. So if you rely on Power BI premium now, you're going to have to navigate kind of that new licensing model, adjust to the different usage costs within Microsoft Fabric. Uh, there's a bunch more SKUs than there were when Fabric first launched. So if you haven't looked at it recently, then this is a good time to go ahead and start planning that for those of you that are in that kind of situation. Um, but you could start with an F2, which is super low, kind of the lowest that you could go, and it goes up from there. But the licensing and the usage costs are definitely different than what you're used to if you've been using Power BI Workspace and that premium SKU. So keep that in mind. Make sure that you plan for it. Make sure that you're looking forward to it, and you start planning that migration and what goes along with it. It's a big architecture move, potentially for businesses. So if you're gonna and a lot of work ahead of you for that migration. So if you're going to migrate to Fabric, are you going to? And I'd love to hear from anybody out there that may be uh, in businesses that are potentially facing this situation now. Um, are you going to migrate your whole data ecosystem to Fabric? Are you going to spin up a SQL database in Fabric that just launched. I don't even think it's GA yet. Um, and and go ahead and migrate all your pipelines and everything into Fabric and within that ecosystem, or are you going to keep everything separate and just have your Power BI workspace within Fabric? What does that look like for you? Um, I know that some companies even have, I worked for a company, did some work for a company that they had Informatica um, for their ETL and their orchestration, and then they still used a Synapse SQL, uh, serverless Synapse SQL database, and uh, and then had the premium SKU for the Power BI workspaces. Um, but that's a big architecture change if you're going to start moving all of that into Fabric. So wanted to spend some time on that. It's a big deal. It is a big change potentially, and definitely something to plan for as you're looking into the next 12 months, both financially and work wise. It's a big undertaking. So those are the big three, Microsoft retirement type things that have happened that I've seen over the past week or so. Like I said, the DP 203 was last month, but announcement was last month. But I wanted to start bringing those types of things to these sessions on Friday nights to make sure that I keep you all informed of these changes, not just with Microsoft, but in the data engineering kind of space as a whole. I'm also curious for those of you that are out there that have been to conferences. I'm looking at finding a conference this year to go to. Super excited about that. There used to be a conference locally in Knoxville that was called Codestock. It was really cool. It was more developer focused, but it was something that I used to go to every year, and it was really cool. We had speakers from AWS, and they had speakers from Microsoft and Databricks, and people from the national labs would come over and talk about the supercomputer over at ORNL. And it was really cool. It was really excited. Used to learn a lot and network with people. But they stopped doing that a couple of years back, and looking for a new conference to go to. So for those of you that have gone to conferences, I'd love to know where you've gone and where you're potentially going this year, and kind of what your favorites are. I know that PASS is a big one out in Oregon, but love to hear from y'all. Let me know in the comments if you were planning on going to any conferences this year. Very interested in where y'all are going. So those were the big things that again happened in the kind of the data ecosystem this past week. You'll notice that I have had a couple of videos out this week. This last one kind of talking more to businesses, but also to data engineers about, is your data AI ready? Which is a big thing right now, especially as we continue to see, AI become more and more present in businesses and in the data space as a whole, and AI agents and things like Mage AI. There's a ton of things coming out with AI over the last little bit, and especially going forward with DeepSeek and with ChatGPT releasing their 5.0 out, here in the next little bit. So lots of exciting things happening in research from Microsoft on Copilot usage effects on developers. Yeah, that's a big conversation for sure. So anyways, I did this video on is your data AI ready, basically, right? Because I think a lot of companies see AI as this magic wand that they could wave and it's going to fix all their problems. And Nathan and I talked about that last week. Again, for those of you that didn't get to join us last week, be sure to go and check out that video. We really had a good time. Uh, really, a lot of great information about kind of the different things that he and I had both been through over the years, and all the changes that we've seen, and kind of how we see AI going out in the future a little bit. So if you haven't seen it, go out and check it out. But how to get your data AI ready is a big thing. You need to make sure that your AI is clean, that you have automated processes in place, that if you have, real time, if you're looking at real time streaming data, that you have those systems in place, they're effectively working, they're reliable, the data is clean, that you have governance, practices in place that are being followed, and that the security is in place. You have to have that foundation before you introduce AI, or you're just going to have junk on top of junk, just like every other, programming thing that you see out there and data thing that you see out there. There's this concept of junk in, junk out, right? Garbage in, garbage out. And and AI is not going to fix that. AI is not the cure all to data that may not be whole, may not be accurate or timely. It's not going to fix those things. Uh, yeah, garbage in is always going to be absolutely equal garbage out. It, like I said, AI is not going to fix that. AI is not going to change that. You pile on AI um, on top of your data that's not clean and whole and accurate and timely, and you're going to have an AI that doesn't that gives you insights that are not accurate, that gives you insights that are junk, that are garbage, and that is behind. So it's not gonna fix your data woes magically. So it's important that you are doing those steps now, that you're making sure that you get those processes in place now, so that when you do introduce, so that you could be AI ready, so that your business and your data can be AI ready, and you could jump on using those tools um, and those resources without uh, having to run into any additional roadblocks or barriers to a timely return on your investment for that AI implementation. So I talked about that in one of the videos this week. Um, let's see. Talked a little bit about diversity this week. I know not everybody's on board with that, and I get it. Um, and probably everybody's not real interested in hearing a middle-aged white man talk about diversity, but I thought it was important. And it's not. It, when I talk about diversity, I'm talking about basically just other walks of life, other people from other paths, not just color of skin, not just gender. I'm talking about the difference between people that took a traditional path, that went through a brick and mortar school to get to where it is important. Yeah, thank you, Nathan. um People kind of crapped on my video, giving me kind of sideways comments on the video itself. At LinkedIn, the post did great and had great comments and great feedback. And then on YouTube, not so much. Um, but it is important, and it's important to me. And it's important that you hear that those voices are at the table. It really is so incredibly important to me, especially having a young daughter. I want to make sure that her voice is able to be heard when she's ready to vocalize her ideas and thoughts. Um, and it shouldn't be like pulling teeth and nails to get to that point for her. Um, and for other people, even down to there's, you'll hear some programmers that went through a brick and mortar school. So many programmers are self-taught and they didn't go through a brick and mortar school, but there is increasingly more and more that did. And I have heard time and time again, those people really disparage people that were self-taught, um, mostly because they don't know the verbiage, they don't know the nomenclature of how to effectively say certain things. They know how it works. For those of us that were self-taught, that were, I didn't go to a brick and mortar school and get my degrees until 15 years into my career. And at that point, I did it because I wanted to get into a leadership position. And sometimes it is hard to get into a leadership position without your degrees. But especially in tech, having those different voices, having those different perspectives of, whether you are a different gender or different, your skin's a different color, a different walk of life. It's important to hear those other voices. It is important when you are talking about how you're pulling the data and what the data is and how people are going to look at it. And it is important when you're creating front ends and how people are going to use those front ends and how people are going to use your data, and just thought processes. And we each think about things in a different way. It should not be so incredibly hard to make sure that we have representation and those voices at the table. Um, because I promise you, they are equally, if not more competent than I am. And and it's important. We all learn from each other. So it's important to listen. It's important to keep an open mind. Um, if you can't tell, I really am super passionate about this. As passionate as I am about continued education, those are a couple of my big hot spots there. I'm a big proponent of continued education and not necessarily brick and mortar school, because even when I did go back to school, I went to Western Governors University, which means that I went to a school where I could go and study it myself and go and take a certification test, get the certification, and move on to the next class. Because I am not a great person to sit in a class and listen to a lecture. Uh, I am a learn by doing, and we all have our different learning styles. Some people are learned by lecture, learn by hearing, right? And some people are learned by seeing, and some people are learned by doing. And there's gradients in between. But two of my passions are making sure that people have the outlets to learn and to grow and to get outside of their comfort zone, because we all know if we stay inside of our comfort zone too long, what happens? Um, somebody tell me what happens when you've stayed inside of your comfort zone for too long. Uh, my personal opinion and personal experience is that you start to become irrelevant. Um, you start to lose your relevance uh, in your field, and you start to become complacent. And I read a story earlier, really along these same lines, about a person that had knew this guy that was the go-to person for everything SQL Server in their business. And and this guy knew everything. He had been doing it forever. He knew everything. And it came time for the company to migrate to Azure. And he was like, no. He's like, I'm not doing it. And he pushed back hard. And he ended up, leaving the company that he had been with for 12 years because they migrated to Azure, and he didn't want to learn Azure. This company did everything to try to provide him the resources and tools to learn it and time, um and he didn't want to do it. So he quit and he went to a company where they were still on-prem SQL Server. And eventually you run out of those situations. You run out of those options eventually. But it's important to continue to learn and grow. It's important to have those opportunities, whether you are, you know, regardless of what gender you identify as, regardless of what your walk of life background has been. It's important that you have those opportunities, and I think we're way better now than we were, you know, 20 years ago for sure. We have YouTube and we have a lot of different options. Um, so yeah. So as always, if you have any questions about data engineering, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear. Nathan kind of talked a little bit about what he thinks about losing Azure Data Studio. Um, I'd love to hear again if anybody's in a situation where they're looking at migrating to Fabric because of the Power BI license SKU expiring. I'd love to hear kind of what your business is going through from that perspective. And for those of you that are aspiring data professionals, I'd love to hear what your path has been so far and what questions you may have. So let me know down in the comments if you have any questions about um, any of the things that we've talked about. Again, I know that it is Valentine's Day, so may not have a ton of people, um, but uh, definitely interested in everybody's comments and questions. So, and if you just want to say hello, say hello. Um, I do want to point out. So, in my diversity video, I pointed out a couple of. First, I'm going to do this other thing. I'm going to put the links to the announcements, to those retirement announcements in the chat so that y'all have it. If you want to go out and check those out. Where'd it go? Give me a second and I'll get those. But also, there's a few podcasts that that have talked about diversity. That one in particular is Two Lit Chicks. LIT stands for Leaders in Technology. So they do an awesome job of they have these podcasts where they talk to it's mostly women talking about kind of women in tech and they have some really brilliant people come on and talk to them about their experience in the tech realm and and if you haven't watched some of their videos it really is interesting. I've gotten a lot out of some of those interviews that they've done. So it's super interesting, but definitely throws in that diversity piece. Talks about a lot about that diversity piece in there. Also, Deloitte did a fantastic podcast recently about diversity and the importance of diversity in tech. And so go out and check those out. Again, after we're done, I'll kind of put those links down in the description for all these things that I'm talking about. All that said, there's a super cool AI podcast I've been listening to. They're on YouTube as well. If I can pull it up. Subscriptions. It's called the AI Daily Brief. And this guy comes on every day, talks about things that are going on in AI, and it's how I personally have been staying up to date with some of my AI news lately. But he talks about the changes in ChatGPT and what's coming out. He talks about different agents, AI agents. He's got one video recently that's 25 agent predictions for 2025. I'll share my screen here, and it's really a great podcast for those of you that may be interested in making sure that you're staying up to date on on AI. It's again great. So AI Daily Brief. Again, he's got like I said, he's talked about recently, the Chat GPT code interpreter is all, how it's already being used. He talked about 25 agents predictions for 2025. He had in one of his videos, he's talking about how Elon offered to buy Chat GPT and Chat GPT told him, Sam Altman told him no. Thanks anyways. So it does a great job. Yeah, I mean the feminine. I really think that women do a great job of looking at things from different perspectives than I think each of us. I think everybody does a good job of taking a look at things from a different perspective, and I think it's important. Um, Thank you, Nathan. Uh, so anyway, so I listened to him, and then you see I've got a bunch of stuff in here. So here's the Two Lit Chicks broadcast, podcast. Um, but they've got several things in here. We have if you all haven't seen Joe Rice is also a really smart guy. About he talks a lot about data engineering as well. And if you haven't checked him out in some of his videos, he does some really cool interviews with really smart people within the data realm. The big thing that I'm looking. Oh, and this is the Daily Tech News Show. If you haven't watched Daily Tech News Show, this is another one of those podcasts that I try to jump on daily. They have a live session at 4 p.m. every day. I try to jump on it for at least a little bit, but they do a good job of really covering tech as a whole. And talking, sometimes some data stuff gets in there, sometimes it's AI stuff, sometimes it's like CES type stuff where it's like, actual like electronic devices. But it's really cool and really helps you stay up to date on tech. And I think that it's important to have that kind of wide scope and wide view as data people as to what all's going on out there in tech as a whole. And the other cool thing about the Daily Tech News Show is that you could vote live and suggest live what you want the title of the video to be afterwards, and they'll change whoever gets the most votes, and they'll change the title. But so those things are cool. If you haven't taken a look at some of those videos, some of those podcasts, I would recommend going out and doing that. Yeah. So might just be me, Nathan now. So those are the big things. I'd again love to hear from you. What questions you may have, thoughts on things going on in tech. I'm trying to pull up the Discord to see if there's any questions maybe over there. Don't get a whole lot of activity on the Discord, but trying to encourage people to talk more. So perspective, yeah, nice. So I mean, those are the big things that I wanted to talk about this week. Data warehousing. Okay, we talk about data warehousing. I'm sure you have, Nathan, some thoughts and comments as well. I'll say, there's so many. Data warehousing has come so far over the past 25 years. The medallion model. We could talk about the medallion model. Yeah, Nathan mentions here this 3-stage setup that I talk about a lot. I'll say that when I talk about the medallion model, take it a little bit with a grain of salt, right? Because in practicality, sometimes it's always a mixture, right? There's always kind of give and take. Working on a distributed data system using SQLite persistent cloud buckets. Nice. Okay. Yes, the medallion model. So let's talk. Let's talk about data warehousing tonight. That's a great topic. So medallion model. The concept of the medallion model is you have kind of 3 buckets. You have a bronze bucket, a silver bucket, and a gold bucket. Basically, the bronze bucket is your raw data. it is actually your JSON, the actual files of JSON payloads. It is your Parquet files. It's your CSVs. It's the raw data from wherever that source is, and you're dumping it into like a ADLS, so Azure Data Lake Storage, so a blob. Um, you're throwing it into maybe an S3 if you're in AWS land. Um, so you're storing it somewhere within cloud storage, generally, and that becomes your bronze layer. And so it's just your raw data coming in. Then you take that data and you're doing transformations. You're doing your cleaning, making sure the data is whole and accurate, making sure that, and this is all automated, right, through notebooks and Databricks, or through pipelines in ADF, or through workflows in Informatica, or whatever ETL and orchestration tool you may be using, or use if you're using DLT. Whatever orchestration and tools that you may be using. Hey, I love it when all my people come. Okay. Thanks guys for joining. I really do get excited. DigitalOcean has spaces that use S3 standard. Yeah. So you're dumping that bronze data into, like, you're in this case, your S3 buckets. And that becomes your bronze layer of data. And then you have your silver layer, which is more structured, right? Generally, it's more table format. And Kubernetes with the love for Airflow. Okay. Yeah, Airflow is an awesome orchestration tool. It is commonly used. It has become really big over especially the last handful of years. It grew pretty quick. It kind of, for me at least, it seemed to come out of nowhere. I like the Kubernetes. I like the Kubernetes deployment in like AKS, right? The Azure Kubernetes. I've not done a whole lot with it outside of Azure, but I like that architecture and using Azure. Glad y'all are doing well. Okay, so anyways, silver, you again, bronze, raw data. Silver, you have curated the data. It is clean. You have put it into generally a table format. I'll go back to my Databricks example. A lot of times your bronze layer again is your ADLS, or your S3, depending on if you've got AWS or Azure as your backend. And then your silver layer is your Delta Lake, right? And so your Delta tables become your silver layer, and that data has been curated, cleaned, transformed into a format where your BI engineers, or you, if you're just a data person, you could create some models and some Power BI reports based off of that data. Some K3s are lightweight. Okay, yeah, if you're going to do it on a Raspberry Pi, then that's a good architecture, especially if you're keeping it small. If it's not going to get too big, and you don't need like the power of like a K8, or we've got K9s out there now too. K3s can do well, especially on Raspberry Pis. Create some video related project. Can you create a video related project? Like Microsoft project? Yeah, it's 5 less than K8. Yeah. Nathan is a pro, man. I loved our conversation last week. See, EC2. I love the EC2 instances on AWS, and so EC2 is great. data engineering related projects. Can you create some? Can you create a two? Oh, data engineering. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've been kind of focused on kind of concepts lately, but yeah, my next one I'm doing is going to be actually Python classes and functions, and then I'll do put together an end to end full end to end project as well. I just put one together for um, one of my mentees, and he's working on it now. So maybe I'll walk through that project and do that. Okay. See, again, Nathan is a, a pro. He's been doing this for a while. So Nathan's the man. Okay, so anyway, silver layer is again, you've cleaned the data. It's a little bit more curated, generally in table format, so that you could build models off of that data, and build reports off of that data, and then you get it into a gold layer. Now, so here's the concept: you're pulling your data into the bronze layer. You're really only using that bronze layer for almost like a staging area, right? It's your staging platform. The silver layer the silver data almost immediately gets created again via that orchestration and pipeline. Um, and then what happens is the gold layer is your more aggregated data, right? The older concept is you would potentially create views off of some of your table, your silver layer data, um, and you'd create views for your aggregated data. Um, but nowadays, with latency and the size of some of the tables, you're actually creating, records within tables, not views, where that data is aggregated again via pipelines and orchestration, or via notebooks and orchestration, and you're putting it into that gold layer, and that gold layer is your aggregation. And then that way, uh, when your analysts and when your scientists are needing that aggregated data, then they're not having to use so much compute to get that data out there. um, you all are awesome. Okay, so this year, what are you going to learn? So this year, so recently, I'll say that recently I've gotten into ICS, which is Informatica. Honestly, before the last year ish, I'd never used Informatica at all. And over the last year, I have learned Informatica Power Center, which is their on-prem version, and ICS, which is Informatica Intelligent Cloud Services, which is their cloud-based ETL tool, ELT tool, ETL tool, right? And you do orchestration and create, they're called workflows or task flows in Power Center, as opposed to pipelines that you see referred to as in ADF or something. But Informatica is cool. I grew up on SSIS and DTS packages and ADF and Synapse, and then moved into using Python and Docker and containerizing things, and so it was a little bit of a learning curve for me, but it's fun. A lot of companies use Informatica, so it was a big thing. The big thing that I aim to learn this year is I'd like to learn more about kind of some of these new tools that I've seen launch. I have Mage AI that I'm trying to learn and study. Oh, ADF. ADF is Azure Data Factory. Sorry, y'all stop me when I use acronyms like that, and you're like, "What the hell are you talking about?" But ADF, Azure Data Factory. Um, so, so I let's see. Oh, what am I going to learn this year? It probably will get into again Mage AI. There is a couple of orchestration type tools that I'm kind of looking at learning to see if it is interesting. And the big thing is I want to learn how to create my own AI agents. That's my big thing is I want to learn how to create AI agents that I can deploy and and potentially use in my business as far as my consulting side of my business, and potentially use in data engineering. So that's it is like like alchemy and chemistry all rolled into 2025. Yeah, it it it. The reality is that that medallion architecture kind of puts a name to what we've kind of been doing all along, right? We're pulling data in. Generally, raw data lands in like I guess again a staging area or a staging table, and then we're transforming it and cleaning it and putting it into a production table, and then we're taking that and layering views or layering other stored procedures or triggers on top of that that are aggregating that data and either putting it into tables or views or again views. But the medallion architecture kind of puts a name to that process and provides some standardization around how that works. uh, yeah, full stack developer, now grad student, exploring security, machine learning, and other fancy stuff. Machine learning is a big thing. uh, Definitely, if you want to go that data scientist route, that's the way to go. Trying to catch up on the comments here. I only hear of Informatica in the last few months in an interview. Yeah, honestly, I was always in like an AWS or like a Microsoft shop. So I never used Informatica till the last year. Yeah, ADF is Azure Data Factory. I think what is AGI? AGI is the artificial general intelligence. Um, so that's what AGI is. It is kind of the uh, human level. There, it's what they predict to be like the human level of intelligence for AI, uh, but AGI is artificial general intelligence. Let's see, what can you like export? Can you like export agent workflows? It's like a YAML or something. I haven't really read all the docs yet. Dang, y'all are lighting me up tonight. Thanks, guys. I love this. Okay, so agent workflows is like a YAML. Um, I'm hoping that I could create like AI agents that will read in new files and kind of complete out my whole, like write a whole script, right? And do the import, do the cleaning, uh, and I could like feed it a file and it will do the whole process, right? A brand new file that's never been ingested, and it will create like the whole pipeline for me. That's what I'm hoping and put things into that whole kind of medallion model that we were just talking about. Um, what is radical? I don't know what that is. Um, Nathan, I'm sorry. I did not read these fast enough to know which stack. Oh, maybe when I was talking about Python and Docker and containerizing, that was my AWS stuff. Putting things into Elastic containers and stuff, if that's what you're asking about. Hope all is well. Do you offer mentorship for budding data engineers? I do. Um, I do offer mentorship for budding data engineers. Um, I do have probably room for a couple more uh, between my consulting things that I'm doing and the few that I have. I probably have room for a couple more. I will say that I do paid mentorship. And I do paid mentorship because I have found that, um, and it's not about the money. It's $35 a session. It's not anything huge or crazy. You're aspiring data engineers, and I get that there's probably financially you can't afford to put a whole lot of money into it. So again, $35 a session, and you could do weekly, bi-weekly, whatever the case may be. And basically, I charge because of this reason. I have found that when you pay for it, you're a little bit more invested in the outcome. Um, so there's that. That's really why I charge for it. I was doing it for free, and I struggled with some ownership and accountability. So not personal, not me, but getting people to be accountable for accomplishing the things that we were working on. So I think that's yeah. Uh, that is a cool name. Do you offer? Yeah, I do offer mentorship. And you could go to the website, go to www.gambilldataengineering.com, and there's a place on there to go and request mentorship, mentoring in the services, um, or you could email me and we could set up a time. Your initial session, I'll send you when you email me or when I get the message from the website. I'll send out an assessment form and you'll kind of fill that out, kind of asking questions about where you're at now, asking some questions about what you want to get out of mentoring, what your style of feedback that you like to receive is, and and basically asking for your buy-in that you're committing to learning and to doing the things that we discuss. So, and part of that mentorship is I give you homework. I give you. I'll create projects to do. I'll try to create them around something that is interesting to you. Um, again, the my most recent mentee. I did one about, or he's working on one now about pulling um, flight telemetry from various websites and from various government sites and pulling that data down into um, a local Postgres database and then doing some, his cleaning and his transformations and creating data models and then creating a visualization. And then we're going to talk about, once he gets done with that, we're going to talk about kind of the next steps and doing even a little bit of predictive modeling. And so again, that's the type of things we work on. We work on some mock interviews. We work on going out and identifying the positions that you might be eligible for at this point and positions that are like your dream positions. And then we use that to really cultivate and specify how you need your learning path to look like in order to achieve those goals. Um, Friday night gamble night. Um, so so that's how I personally approach mentorship. Obviously, mentorship is not the same um, for everybody, but I think it's important that you have something that you have a project with a data set that you're passionate about, that you're excited about, and and I think that everybody needs the experience and practice of doing mock interviews on a regular basis, and so that they're ready to walk into a um, so that they're ready to walk into their interview when it comes time. It's just good to have that practice, and so that you're comfortable and it feels natural when you walk into those interviews. Because an interview, my experiences, interviews that feel like a conversation are the jobs that you end up getting. If you could walk in and it feels like just a natural conversation, you sit down and you're talking data with somebody, kind of like Nathan and I last week, you're just coming in, hanging out, talking about data for an hour or two, and then you go home and maybe you get a phone call in a couple of days and they invite you back. Um, so um, that's awesome. So let's see. That's awesome. Very cool. So again, I love that you all are here. A great conversation tonight. Really, this is really the highlight of my week. Sometimes, a lot of times. So really enjoy my conversations with you all. Um, what other questions do y'all have? We've talked about a lot of things tonight. Uh, we've talked about mentorship. Um, we've talked about, let's see what you got. I don't have any type of background in ML and analytics, but hoping to learn from you. I do have some background in analytics and a bit of background in some predictive modeling and machine learning. Um, but yeah, it definitely reach out to me again. My email. You could get to my email in the in the description. It's just chris.gamble at gambledataengineering.com. You could reach out to me again via the website, but yeah, ping me, let me know. We'll set up a time, and I use Google Meet, and we'll get on a video. We get on video calls for 30 minutes to an hour each week. Again, I'll and I'll give you homework, a little bit of homework each week or every other week, however you want that cadence to look like, and try to get you to where you want to be. Yeah, and if machine learning and analytics are where you want to go to, then that'll be the path that we jump on. That'll be the direction we go. I'm happy to help you get there. Uh, and I might have told this story in sessions before, in these live sessions before, but coming out of high school, I wanted to be a teacher, and and then I found out how much teachers make, and I was like, man, that sucks. So uh, ended up doing sports management as my first degree, um, and didn't finish that because sports management is clearly not what my passion is, and found my way into data. Thank you, Nathan. You too. Um, yep, same time next week, 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock every Friday. Uh, so I'll hang out for a little bit longer as long as there's more questions. Uh, uh, I'm actually going to try to get up to Pennsylvania this summer. We're going to do a road trip and try to hit Hershey and Philadelphia, kind of see some of the historic sites. My brother lives in Alexandria, and they're having a baby this year, so or in June, and so we're going to try to get up probably in July and kind of drive through Alexandria and then get up to Pennsylvania. Virginia. Oh yeah, that's right. You are in Virginia. Um, yes, Virginia. Now you get to be both. That's awesome. Yeah. Uh, I've it, when I was young, I hated like um, and get paid better. So for maybe those of you that don't know, probably I've not talked about it much, but my wife has her PhD in social work, and like she wrote a dissertation, and it was 100 pages, and I was always like, man, I hate writing. I'm not going to ever write 100 pages. And then I went back and went back and finished up my bachelor's degree in IT and my master's degree in analytics, and ended up having to write, like 20-page papers. Um, like the first one I had to write was on like art history, and I moaned and complained about a 3-page paper for weeks, and my wife was like, I don't want to hear it. And then but uh for my capstones, they were like 15, 20 page papers, but they were about these analytics projects that I did. And I didn't have any problem cranking out 20 pages. So I learned that I don't mind writing when it's something that I'm interested in. I just hate writing when it's something that I don't care about. Um, yeah, we're all kind of in a line. I'm in Tennessee. uh, Nick Hill is in Virginia, and then Nathan, you're in Pennsylvania. So it's we're all kind of right up the coast here. Um, I love hearing where people are at. Um, yeah, yeah, I could write thousands of lines of Python, no problem. When it came to, again, that 3 page art history paper about killed me. I was like, oh, my wife's like, I don't, you stop complaining. Uh, but yeah, but again, 20 pages on this analytics projects, this predictive analytics projects that I did for my capstones, and cranked them out, no problem. I didn't complain about it. Um, and now I'm writing like weekly, right? Writing like these 2 and 3 page articles for Medium, and I am writing my scripts for the videos and try to plan those out a little bit, and I don't have a problem writing for this type of content. uh I just don't want to Nathan's in Pennsylvania. um so all right, well, I've heard from Nathan and Nihil and um VJ, Mr. VJ. I know there's somebody else out there listening. I'd love to hear from you. If you want to jump in there. And here I am going live every week. Yeah. Uh, these I don't write anything for. These I kind of wing. So these are less scripted and more just me jumping on here, having a conversation with y'all, seeing what you want to talk about, and getting on here and seeing how I can help everybody. Again, whoever my other person is, I'd love to hear from you and hear about actual Medium articles. Yeah, yeah, actual Medium articles. A lot of times it's like I'll do a video, right? And I'll write my script for the video and be like, oh, this could be a good article for those. Because again, like I talked about earlier, everybody has their own kind of learning style, right? Some people are watch, some people are read, some people are do. Um, and and again, some people that's their learning style. And so Medium. I've not done a whole lot. Uh, but I've done a handful. And like I said, I try to do them once a week. Um, they started picking up. My where 1 = 1 and where 1 = 0 actually is like the hot one that has gotten the most reads and claps. When people clap for an article on Medium is when kind of we get more money for those of people that are doing Medium articles and are making a little tiny bit of money. Um, but here, I'm going to share real quick. That's the share. Boom, 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 share. So yeah, did one on Microsoft retirement roundup, AI business ready. My diversity article. What makes a senior data engineer makes a senior data engineer senior. That one's got several claps and a comment. So I've done a handful. Again, try to do these like once a week. Some are more popular than others. Obviously, I think that's just the nature of things. But I try to do those once a week, and get them out there. Again, everybody learns a little differently. Um, all the big CEOs saying AI is going to replace entry mid-level engineers. You know, it, I see this, right, and you hear people like, oh my god, I just went blank on his name, but the Meta, the Facebook guy, um, get out there and say, hey, I think AI is going to replace our mid-level engineers, um, and entry-level engineers, and not going to need them anymore. But if you don't have entry-level and mid-level engineers, you don't have senior engineers. At some point, you have to have that pipeline of talent. That's one. Two, data engineers altogether. And just to clarify, when I've heard him talking about that, it's generally about software engineers, um, because you can go out to a AI and ask them to write basically a full program for you that you could almost just copy and paste and create a whole program. But the reality is that AI needs data. Now, what we're feeding data into may change. How we're doing it may change, right? Because we'll have new tools, just like everything else. Um, and again, I have one of the articles are about this a little bit. Um, Data engineers specifically are still going to be needed. 5 years from now, you're still going to need a data engineer that is pulling the data from the sources, cleaning it. You might be doing a little bit more advanced, actually doing the more fun to me and more advanced things. Um, and AI might be helping you with some of the basic tasks, but we're still going to be needed. Again, how we're doing things, what we're doing may evolve, just like it did when all the cloud stuff came out, just like it did when we moved from DTS to SSIS to ADF, which is Azure Data Factory, um, and to Databricks, right? Just when we started, evolving our skill sets that way, we'll have to continue to evolve our skill sets in order to stay relevant. And those people, like the story I talked about earlier, where the guy didn't want to learn cloud, he wanted to only stick with Microsoft SQL Server, and he didn't want to learn anything. Those people are going to go by the wayside, and those are the people that we're not going to need anymore because they're not interested in learning the new skill sets. So that's my thoughts on all the big CEOs saying AI is going to replace them. If you replace them, then who's it, it? It's not feasible. Now, here's the other thing: is that as a data engineer, I could tell you I've never been anywhere where I've sat still and been like, "There's no work to do." There is always, for data engineers, there's always more work than is fathomable to complete. There just always is. And part of it is because companies are always migrating from one tool to another, which means that you're migrating your data, which means you're having to pull from a new data source. That data source is going to be different than the previous data source. You have to find a way to merge those two data sources so that you have outputs that are similar so that your leadership can continue to make the decisions that they're making. Those things are always going. Those things are always changing. Those things will continue to always be changing because businesses want the cheapest and the most value for what they're paying, and companies are going to continue to try and offer that. Um, Nathan's on two devices trying to keep up with everything. I think Nihil's and Nathan's trying to get together to do a meetup. Again, I mentioned this earlier, and I have a few more people on now. But if any of you are going to like a conference this year, I would love to hear where you're going. I'm looking for a conference to get to. Check out my link above about Microsoft's own research about Copilot. Was that a link? check that out. Okay. That's awesome. That is so cool. So, okay. So, like live right now, you all are getting together and gonna plan a meetup. That is awesome. Um, so very cool. That's thrilling to me. That's awesome. Okay. So very cool. We are running about quarter after 11 my time. Any final questions? This has been an amazing conversation tonight. Have really enjoyed it. Really had fun. Really excited about this meetup that looks like is being planned and is going to take place. Um, yeah, I think Nathan's right here. Uh, it's good for business and those particular businesses. Um, you're going to have the Sam Altmans of the world that are out there saying, "Yeah, AI is going to take the place of all these jobs." Um, the reality is that right now, it might not feel like it from a entry level position because you might be struggling to get an entry level position, but as a senior, I see 15 new jobs, new remote jobs pop into my inbox every day. Like they're W-2 positions. I don't want W-2 positions. Um, but yeah, all that being said too, my own personal plug here. I do consulting, right? And so I do data consulting. I do fractional data engineer work. I do fractional architecture work. I do fractional just data strategy work. And we'll do all those do those three things, primarily focusing on um, kind of the Azure data stack, the Microsoft Azure data stack. Um, but definitely have done some AWS stuff, quite a bit of AWS stuff as well over the years, and and also do migrations. So if you all are in a position that you can mention my name, then feel free to do that. But yeah, yeah, I'll check that out. Very cool. All right. Well, guys, again, it's been a great session. For those of you that are still on, if you have any final questions or comments, let me know down in the chat. Have had a fantastic call tonight. Great conversation. Uh, Always enjoy it, and really thank you all for jumping on and enjoying it, or jumping on and having this conversation with me. Uh, I hope you enjoyed it. Um, I like consulting. Uh, it gives me the freedom to work on the projects that I want to work on, and yeah, I get to know a bunch of different people. Generally, so far, it's been other leaders that I've worked with in the past that have been like, "Hey, can you come and help us for a while?" So awesome. Well, I'm going to let you all go tonight. And again, I enjoyed it. I hope you all did as well. Hope you got something out of it. And I will talk to you all again next Friday.